I was asked to give a eulogy for a man I hadn't spoken to in 12 years. That alone should have told me something was wrong. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of work. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me picked it up. Is this Daniel Harper? A woman asked, her voice calm but rehearsed, like she'd said the same line 100 times already. Yes, I said. Who's this? My name is Laura Finch. I'm calling on behalf of the Whitmore family. I'm very sorry to inform you that Richard Whitmore passed away yesterday. The name landed heavy in my chest. Richard Whitmore, a man I hadn't heard about in over a decade. A man I'd spent years trying to forget. I'm sorry, I said slowly. I think you have the wrong number. There was a pause. Papers shuffling. Then, no, Mr. Harper. According to our records, you knew Richard quite well. I almost laughed. Almost. Not for a long time. Yes, she said carefully. We understand that. Still, the family would like you to attend the funeral. In fact, they specifically requested you. That was when my stomach tightened. Requested me? I repeated, yes. And they were very clear about one more thing. She hesitated. They want you to give the eulogy. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That's not funny, I said. I assure you, Mr. Harper, this is not a joke. I stood up from my desk, walked into the empty stairwell, the phone pressed hard against my ear. You're asking me to speak at the funeral of a man who cut me out of his life 12 years ago. Yes, a man who made sure I was never allowed back into his house. Yes, a man whose family pretended I didn't exist. Another pause, longer this time. Yes, I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. Why? Her answer was immediate. Too immediate. Because Richard left instructions. That sentence followed me for the rest of the day. I didn't say yes right away. I told her I needed time. She said the funeral was in 4 days. She gave me an address. Before hanging up, she added one last thing. There's something else you should know, Mr. Harper. Richard left you something. The family believes it would be appropriate for you to attend. I didn't sleep that night because Richard Whitmore wasn't just someone from my past. He was the reason my life split into a before and an after. I met Richard when I was 22. I was broke, drifting, freshly dropped out of grad school, and sleeping on a friend's couch. Richard was in his late 50s, wealthy, respected, and powerful in a quiet way. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. People listened when he spoke. He found me at a charity event I had no business attending. I was there because my girlfriend at the time insisted it was good for networking. I stood near the back, uncomfortable in a borrowed suit, holding a warm beer and wondering how fast I could leave without being rude. Richard approached me like he already knew me. You don't belong here, he said, smiling. I braced myself. That obvious? You're watching people instead of trying to impress them, he replied. That usually means one of two things. You're either very dangerous or very lost. I laughed. Probably the second one. Good, he said. Those are easier to shape. That was the first red flag. I missed it completely. Over the next year, Richard became everything I didn't know I was missing. Mentor, guide, sponsor. He helped me get a job at his firm, helped me find an apartment, introduced me to people who opened doors I didn't even know existed. When my girlfriend left, Richard was there. When my mother got sick and I couldn't afford the hospital bills, Richard handled it quietly. When I doubted myself, he corrected me. When I succeeded, he took credit just long enough to make sure others noticed. People joked that I was his project, his protege, his second chance at a son. I should have run. Instead, I leaned in. Richard's house became my second home. His dinners were legendary. Politicians, judges, business leaders, all smiling, all polite, all pretending they weren't measuring each other's worth in real time. And then there was Evelyn, Richard's daughter. She was a year older than me. Smart, sharp-tongued, nothing like the sheltered, rich girl stereotype people expected. She saw through people instantly, including me. You're not like the others, she told me once, after watching me silently observe a dinner argument about ethics and profit margins. That makes you interesting. or dangerous? I smiled. You already know which one. We started dating 6 months later. That was when things shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't just Richard's protege. I was family adjacent. Watched more closely. Evaluated differently. Invitations became tests. Conversations became layered. Still, I trusted him. That was my mistake. The night everything broke happened quietly. No jilling, no drama, just a closed door and a calm voice. Richard asked me to meet him in his study. He poured me a drink, sat across from me, folded his hands. I need you to leave, he said. I blinked. Leave what? My company, my home, my life. I laughed, waiting for the punchline. It never came. You've crossed the line, he continued. And while I appreciate everything you've contributed, this arrangement can no longer continue. My heart pounded. What line? He stood, walked to his desk, and slid a folder toward me. Inside were documents, emails, bank statements, things I'd never seen before. You've been using company resources for personal gain, he said. You violated trust. I stared at the pages. This isn't mine. It came from your login. I was set up, I said. Someone, that's enough, he interrupted. I've already made my decision. I went cold. What about Evelyn? His jaw tightened. You will not contact her again. What? I stood up. You can't just. You're done, he said quietly. If you make this difficult, I will ensure you leave with nothing. I remember the silence after that. Thick, crushing. I left that house with a box of my things and no explanation. Evelyn stopped answering my calls. My job disappeared overnight. Friends distanced themselves. Rumors spread. Within weeks, I was radioactive. I tried to fight it, tried to clear my name. But Richard's influence was absolute. Doors closed before I could knock. Eventually, I left the city, started over, built something new from scraps and resentment. I told myself I was over it. Then the phone rang. Now, 4 days later, I stood in front of Richard Whitmore's house again. The same massive gates, the same long driveway, but everything felt smaller. Hello. People I didn't recognize greeted me like an old ghost. Some avoided my eyes. Some stared too long. Evelyn stood near the entrance. She looked older, tired, strong in a way that comes from surviving something you never talk about. Our eyes met. She froze. Then she walked over. Why are you here? She asked. They asked me to speak, I said. Her face drained of color. Oh God, she whispered. He really did it. Did what? I asked. She shook her head. You shouldn't have come. Before I could respond, Laura Finch appeared beside us. It's time, she said gently. Mr. Harper, if you'll follow me. I walked toward the podium, heart pounding, palms sweating. As I stepped up, I noticed something placed neatly beside the microphone. A sealed envelope. My name written on it. In Richard's handwriting. The room fell silent, and I realized, too late, that the eulogy wasn't the reason I was invited. It was the trap. I stood at the podium staring at that envelope for longer than was comfortable. I could feel the weight of the room pressing into my back. Dozens of eyes watching, waiting for me to speak about a man they admired, respected, maybe even loved. A man who had destroyed my life. My hands were shaking when I picked up the envelope. The paper felt thick, expensive. Of course it did. Richard never did anything halfway. I glanced toward Evelyn. She had moved to the front row at some point. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight, eyes locked on the envelope like it was a live grenade. I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No legal jargon. No pleasantries. Just Richard's handwriting. Daniel, if you are reading this, then I am dead, and you are standing exactly where I wanted you to stand. I owe you the truth. And unfortunately for everyone in this room, the truth cannot exist without witnesses. Read everything. Out loud. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I swallowed hard. This wasn't a eulogy. This was a confession. My heart hammered as I continued. 12 years ago, I accused you of stealing from my company. You didn't. I knew that the moment I saw the evidence. The money was taken by my son-in-law, Michael. Evelyn's husband-to-be at the time. He was bleeding cash, drowning in debts he hid well. Gambling, bad investments, desperation. I covered it up, not because I believed you were guilty, but because you were convenient. You were talented, ambitious, loved by people I needed to impress. And most dangerously, you mattered to Evelyn. I could not risk you discovering what kind of man Michael really was before the marriage secured certain alliances. So I chose you. A sharp inhale echoed somewhere behind me. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I felt dizzy. My fingers tightened around the page as years of confusion snapped into horrifying clarity. I destroyed your reputation to protect my family's image. I erased you because it was easier than admitting my failure as a father. I told Evelyn you betrayed us. I showed her fabricated proof. I let her believe you abandoned her when she needed answers. She begged me to let her speak to you. I refused. I told her you never asked. I couldn't read for a moment. Evelyn let out a sound that didn't quite qualify as a sob. Her hands were over her mouth now, shoulders trembling. I forced myself to continue. Michael eventually revealed himself, as men like him always do. The marriage imploded. The alliances failed anyway. And by then, you were gone. I tried to find you. Too late. What I did to you cannot be undone. But what I took from you can be returned. Everything that follows this letter is proof. Documents, transfers, recordings. They are not for forgiveness. They are for justice. My chest burned. The room was silent now. No polites shifting. No quiet coughs. Just stunned stillness. I looked up. Faces I remembered as smug and powerful now looked uncertain. Some looked afraid. I read the final lines. Daniel Harper did not betray this family. I did. Remember that. The letter slipped from my fingers onto the podium. For a full 10 seconds, no one spoke. Then the noise exploded. Voices overlapping. Gasps. Chairs scraping. Someone cursed out loud. A woman near the aisle started crying openly. I turned toward Evelyn. She was standing now, shaking, tears streaking her face. "You lied to me," she said, her voice cracking as she looked toward the front row where her mother sat frozen. "All these years, you let me hate him." Her mother finally stood, eyes darting, lips trembling. "Evelyn, please, this isn't the place." This was exactly the place, Evelyn snapped. "He planned this. He wanted us to hear it." She looked at me then, really looked at me. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "I just thought you stopped loving me." Something inside my chest fractured. "I tried to reach you," I said hoarsely. "Every way I knew how." She nodded slowly, the truth crashing over her in waves. The lawyer, Laura Finch, stepped forward, raising her hands gently. "Please," she said, "there are legal matters that need to be addressed." Richard left extensive instructions. That word again. Instructions. I was led into a private room after the service along with Evelyn, her mother, 2 board members from Richard's company, and Laura. Folders were laid out across the table. Dozens of them. Laura cleared her throat. Richard Whitmore left the majority of his estate in a trust. The primary beneficiary is Daniel Harper. The room erupted. "That's impossible," one of the board members snapped. "He has a daughter." Evelyn didn't react. She just stared at the documents, eyes hollow. Laura nodded calmly. "Evelyn Whitmore is provided for separately. This trust concerns restitution." She slid a document toward me. "Mr. Harper, this includes financial compensation, controlling shares in Whitmore Industries, and full access to the evidence referenced in the letter." My hand shook as I flipped through the pages. Bank transfers, internal emails, security footage timestamps. Everything needed to destroy Michael's reputation retroactively. Everything Richard buried. "And one more thing," Laura added. "Richard requested that you decide whether this information becomes public." The weight of that choice crushed down on me. Evelyn finally spoke. "What are you going to do?" I looked at her, at the woman who lost 12 years because of one man's fear. "I don't know," I said honestly. The meeting dissolved after that. People left quietly, avoiding my gaze. The empire Richard built suddenly felt fragile. Evelyn and I stood alone near the window. "I married Michael because I thought you betrayed us," she said softly. "I thought I needed someone safe, predictable. And was he?" I asked. She laughed bitterly. "No, he nearly ruined me." We stood in silence. "I'm not asking you to forgive my father," she said. "I don't think I ever will. But I want the truth to be known, even if it burns everything down." I nodded slowly. That night, alone in my hotel room, I opened the final folder. Inside was something Richard never mentioned. A video file, dated 12 years ago. Curious and uneasy, I pressed play. The screen flickered to life. Richard sat at his desk, looking directly into the camera. "This is for you, Daniel," he said. "If you're seeing this, then I failed to fix what I broke while I was alive." He leaned forward. "There is one more thing you need to know." My pulse thundered. Michael didn't act alone. The screen cut to black, and I realized the truth wasn't finished with me yet. I didn't sleep that night. The hotel room felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. The glow from the city bled through the curtains, painting everything in dull orange streaks, but I couldn't stop staring at the black screen of my laptop. Michael didn't act alone. Richard's voice echoed in my head again and again. By sunrise, I still hadn't touched the video file. I told myself it was fear, but that was only half the truth. The other half was worse. A part of me already knew the answer, and I wasn't sure I could survive hearing it out loud. My phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. "Can we talk?" "Please." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Yes. Come over." She arrived an hour later, eyes rimmed red, hair pulled back like she hadn't bothered to look in a mirror. She looked older than she had yesterday, like truth had weight, and it was finally settling into her bones. She noticed the laptop immediately. "You haven't watched it yet," she said. I shook my head. "I wanted you here." Her jaw tightened. "That bad?" "I think so." She sat beside me on the edge of the bed. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached out and closed the laptop gently. "Before you play it," she said, voice low, "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. 12 years ago, that feeling would have meant butterflies. Now it meant impact. "After you disappeared," Evelyn said, "I didn't just believe my father. I believed Michael too. He helped fuel it." I looked at her sharply. "He said you'd always been jealous of him, that you resented my family, that you tried to take advantage of my father's trust." My chest tightened. "And you believed him." "I wanted to," she said honestly, "because if I didn't, then I would have had to admit I was marrying the wrong man." Silence stretched between us. "Is that what this is?" I asked quietly. "More lies he fed you?" Evelyn swallowed. "No, it's worse." She stood up and paced the room like a trapped animal. 2 years into our marriage, I found emails, transfers, offshore accounts. I confronted him. He laughed. I felt something cold crawl up my spine. He told me everything, she continued. How he took the money, how my father covered it up, how you were the scapegoat. My heart started pounding. "You knew." "I knew," she said, tears spilling over. And I stayed. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly. "You stayed," I repeated, disbelief cracking my voice. "You knew I was innocent, and you stayed silent." "I was pregnant," she whispered. The room tilted. "Pregnant. I lost the baby," she said quickly. "Early. Stress, doctor said." Michael barely reacted. My father told me if the truth came out, everything would collapse. The company, the family, what little stability I had left. I ran a hand through my hair, breathing hard. "So you chose them," I said. "I chose survival," she shot back. Or at least what I thought was survival. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. Instead, I sat back down heavily on the bed. "That video," I said. "I think it's going to prove you weren't the only one who knew." Her eyes flicked to the laptop. "Play it." I opened it. The video resumed exactly where it cut. Richard's face filled the screen again, older but sharp, eyes too aware. Michael was sloppy, he said, but he wasn't stupid. He had help. The video cut to security footage. A timestamp from 12 years ago. Richard's office. The door opened. A woman walked in. Evelyn froze. "Oh God," she whispered. It was her mother. Younger, yes, but unmistakable. She sat across from Richard in the footage, leaning forward, animated. The audio crackled, then cleared. "You can't pin this on Michael alone," her mother said. "He'll fold. He always does." Richard rubbed his temples. "Then what do you suggest?" The woman smiled. "There's a boy downstairs," she said. "Smart, trusted, and completely expendable." My chest felt like it was caving in. "She chose you," Evelyn whispered, horror dawning across her face. "She picked you." The footage jumped. Another clip, another meeting. This time, Evelyn herself stood in the doorway. Younger, nervous. "I just want the truth," her younger voice said. "Did Daniel do this?" The footage paused. Richard looked straight into the camera. "I lied to her," he said softly in the present-day recording. "But I wasn't the first." The video resumed. Her mother leaned close to Evelyn, placing a hand on her shoulder. "He confessed," she said gently. "Your father has proof." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." The lie slid out of her mouth effortlessly. Evelyn collapsed onto the bed. "I asked her," she sobbed. "I asked her directly. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Years of hatred, of silence, of isolation, all engineered." The video ended with Richard again. "I'll let her believe it because it benefited us all," he said. "Except you." The screen went black. For a long time, the only sound was Evelyn crying. When she finally looked up, her face was something I barely recognized. "She destroyed us," she said hoarsely. "My own mother. And your father let her," I replied. The room felt poisoned by the truth. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I thought of the folders, the evidence, the choice Richard left me with. "I'm going to burn it down," I said. The fallout was immediate. Within 48 hours, the evidence went public. Not just Michael, not just Richard, everything. Emails, recordings, financial trails, boardroom deals, bribes, cover-ups. The media exploded. Whitmore Industries stock plummeted. Lawsuits stacked up overnight. The board turned on Evelyn's mother with terrifying speed. She tried to deny it. Then the footage aired. She was arrested 3 days later. Michael vanished before charges could be filed. Rumor had it he fled the country. I didn't care. Evelyn cut all contact with her family. She moved out of the estate and into a small apartment downtown. No staff, no security, just silence and consequences. I took control of the trust. The money didn't feel like victory. It felt like a receipt for pain. One evening, weeks later, Evelyn showed up at my door. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I know I don't deserve it. I studied her, the woman I loved, the woman who broke me, the woman who was broken too. What do you want?" I asked. "The truth," she said, "even if it means you never want to see me again." I took a breath. "You didn't just lose me because of your father," I said quietly. "You lost me because when you learned the truth, you chose comfort over courage." Tears streamed down her face. "I know. I can forgive," I said, "but I can't forget." She nodded. "That's fair." She turned to leave. "Evelyn," I said. She stopped. "The story isn't over," I added. "People are still watching, still choosing sides." She gave a sad smile. "Let them." As she walked away, I realized something that shocked me more than any revelation so far. Richard thought this was his final act of control. But the real power wasn't in the money. It was in who told the story. And now, the world was arguing in the comments, tearing each other apart, asking the same question over and over. Was I right to expose them all? Or did I become the asshole by destroying an entire family for the truth? If you made it this far, don't scroll away. Hit subscribe and drop your take below because the next story is even messier, and you're not going to want to miss it. The voicemail sat on my phone for 3 days before I finally listened to it. Not because I was busy, but because I already knew it was going to ruin something I couldn't put back together. It was for my older sister, Lauren. "Mom's not doing well," she said, voice tight and controlled in the way she only used when she was trying not to sound scared. "The lawyer called. You need to come home. Now." I hadn't been home in 7 years. Not for holidays. Not for birthdays. Not even for my father's funeral. People love to pretend distance heals things. It doesn't. It just gives pain room to ferment until it turns into something sharp enough to cut everyone involved. I packed that night anyway. The drive back felt longer than it should have. Every mile marker pulled up a memory I hadn't asked for. My dad yelling over the dinner table, Lauren standing behind him like a loyal soldier. My mom pretending silence was the same thing as peace. And me, always me, being told I was too sensitive, too dramatic, not built for the real world. The house looked smaller when I pulled into the driveway. Same white siding, same crooked mailbox, same oak tree out front that my dad once said would outlive us all. The irony almost made me laugh. Lauren opened the door before I knocked. She looked exactly the same, just sharper, like life had carved her into something efficient. "You finally came," she said. "Not I'm glad you're here. Not I missed you. Just finally." Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and old resentment. Mom was asleep in her room, hooked up to machines that hummed softly like they were trying not to disturb her. Cancer, stage 4. The kind people whisper about like it might hear them. "She's asking for you," Lauren said. "So she needs to fix things." I didn't answer, because the truth was I didn't know if I wanted things fixed anymore. The lawyer arrived the next morning. His name was Charles, gray-haired, calm, and already exhausted like he'd been holding this family's secrets for too long. He sat at the dining table where we'd once had screaming matches over chores and curfews, and who loved who more. "This is about the estate," he said, folding his hands. "Your mother insisted we wait until you arrived." Lauren's jaw tightened. "I've handled everything for years," she said. "I don't see why." "This affects both of you," Charles interrupted gently. That was the first crack. He slid a folder across the table. Thick, heavier than paper should be. "There have been changes," he continued, "and conditions." I opened it. The house, the land, the accounts. Everything was split down the middle. 50-50. Lauren laughed, short and sharp. "That's a mistake." "It's not," Charles said. "Your mother was very clear." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not relief. Not gratitude. Suspicion. Lauren leaned forward. "You walked away," she said, staring straight at me. "You left us to deal with Dad. With Mom. With everything. And now you think you deserve half." "I didn't say that," I replied. "But you're taking it." The silence stretched. Charles cleared his throat. "There's more." He pulled out another document. "A trust," he said, "created 12 years ago. Quietly. 12 years ago. The year I left. The primary beneficiary," Charles continued, "is Daniel." Lauren went pale. "That's impossible," she snapped. "Dad would never." "Your father didn't create it," Charles said. My heart started pounding. "Then who did?" I asked. He looked at me carefully. "Your mother." The room felt like it shifted. "She transferred a significant portion of the assets before your father's death," Charles explained. "Off the books. Protected. Untouchable." Lauren stood abruptly. "She stole from him." "She protected it," Charles corrected. "From him." My mouth felt dry. "What?" I asked. Charles hesitated. "Because your father was planning to cut you out completely," he said. "And because he was moving money in ways that would have destroyed the family if uncovered." Lauren's voice shook. "You're lying." "I'm not," Charles said. "And there's documentation." Lauren turned to me, eyes blazing. "You knew," she said. "Didn't you?" "I didn't," I replied honestly. But even as I said it, something inside me twisted. Because pieces were lining up too easily. That night, Mom woke up. She looked fragile. Smaller than I remembered. Like the woman who once ruled the house with silence and side eyes had finally run out of power. "You came," she whispered. I did. She studied my face like she was memorizing it. I should have stopped him, she said suddenly. My throat tightened. Stopped who? Your father. The words landed heavy. He hated how much you saw, she continued. You questioned him. You didn't just obey. That scared him. Lauren stood frozen in the doorway. He wanted you gone, Mom said. Not just out of the house. Out of the family. My pulse roared in my ears. So you let him, I said quietly. She flinched. I was weak. Lauren shook her head slowly. You're rewriting history. Mom turned to her. You were his favorite because you never challenged him. Lauren's face crumpled. That's not true. It is, Mom said softly, and I used you as a shield. The room felt like it was collapsing inward. I hid the money, Mom said, looking back at me, because I knew one day you'd need leverage, or justice, or revenge. Lauren spat. Mom didn't answer. That was when I realized this wasn't about inheritance. It was about control. And whatever was buried in that trust was only the beginning. Because if my mother had been planning for this long, then she knew something neither of us did. And whatever it was, it had already torn this family apart once. It was about to do it again. I didn't sleep that night. The house creaked the way it always had, like it was alive and listening. Every sound carried weight now. Footsteps in the hallway, the soft hiss of Mom's oxygen machine, Lauren pacing in her room like a caged animal. I lay awake staring at the ceiling I used to count cracks in as a kid, replaying everything Mom had said until the words lost their edges and became something worse. Patterns. By morning, Lauren was already waiting at the kitchen table. Coffee brewed. Files spread out. She looked like she'd been preparing for a trial. We need to talk, she said flatly. I poured myself a cup, took a sip, and instantly regretted it. Too bitter. Or maybe everything tasted wrong now. About? I asked, even though we both knew. You coming back after all these years, she said. The timing is convenient. Mom is dying, I replied. She's been sick for months, Lauren shot back. You didn't come then. I didn't know. She scoffed. You always say that. I set the mug down carefully. Just say what you're really thinking. Her eyes locked onto mine. I think you knew about the trust. I think you waited. And now you're here to take what I've spent my entire adult life protecting. The accusation hit harder than I expected. I left because Dad made it impossible to stay, I said. Not because I was plotting some long game. Lauren leaned back, crossing her arms. Funny how his impossible behavior never seemed to affect me. That's because you were useful to him. Her jaw clenched. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not, I said. Mom already did. That shut her up. For a moment, all we could hear was the hum of the fridge. Then she stood abruptly. I'm calling Charles, she said. There are things he didn't tell you. She dialed on speaker. Charles answered on the third ring. Lauren, he said carefully. Is everything all right? No, she snapped. I want the full truth. Now, a pause. Some things, Charles said slowly, were meant to be discussed privately. With both of us, she said. Put on the table. Another pause. Longer this time. Very well, he sighed. But understand, once said, it can't be unsaid. I felt my stomach tighten. Your mother didn't just create a trust, Charles continued. She created safeguards, in case one of you tried to challenge the will. Lauren's eyes widened. Challenge how? By claiming undue influence, he said, or mental incapacity. Silence. That's ridiculous, Lauren said quickly. She's sick, not stupid. She anticipated that argument, Charles replied, which is why she recorded everything. My breath caught. Recorded. Years of journals. Audio. Video, Charles said. She documented your father's behavior. His financial moves. His threats. Lauren shook her head. You're lying. I'm not, he said gently. And there's more. The word more felt dangerous. She also documented something else, Charles said. Something neither of you were told. Lauren's voice dropped. What? Charles exhaled. There was an investigation. My heart slammed against my ribs. About what? About your father, he said, and his business partner. Lauren laughed weakly. Dad ran a clean operation. Charles didn't respond. That silence is not comforting, I said. Your father was laundering money, Charles said quietly, through shell companies, offshore accounts. It was never proven publicly because someone intervened. Lauren's face went ghost white. Who? Your mother, Charles replied. She made a deal. She provided evidence to the authorities on the condition that charges wouldn't be filed until after his death, to spare the family. The room spun. So the money, I said slowly, the trust, wasn't just inheritance, Charles said. It was restitution, insurance, a way to survive what would have come out. Lauren stood up so fast her chair tipped over. You expect me to believe Mom protected a criminal? She said. She protected her children, Charles corrected. From scandal, prison, ruin. Lauren turned on me. And you were in on this? No, I said. I swear. But doubt flickered in her eyes. That was when Mom screamed. It wasn't loud. It was sharp, panicked, the kind of sound that rips through denial. We ran to her room. She was thrashing weakly, eyes wide, clawing at the sheets like she was drowning. He knows, she gasped. He knows I told you. Who? Lauren asked. Mom's gaze locked onto mine. Your father, she whispered. He never stopped watching. A chill crawled up my spine. Mom, Dad is dead. She shook her head frantically. Not him. What he left behind. Her eyes rolled back, and the machine started screaming. Doctors came. Nurses. Chaos. When it was over, they told us she'd stabilized, but barely. Time is limited, one of them said gently. Lauren and I stood in the hallway, shell-shocked. What does that even mean? She whispered. I don't know, I said, but I don't think this ends with a will. That afternoon, Charles arrived in person. He brought a locked briefcase. This wasn't supposed to happen yet, he said, but given your mother's condition. He opened it. Inside were drives, letters, a single envelope marked with my name. I froze. Why is that for him? Lauren demanded. Because your mother believed, Charles said, that if anyone tried to destroy this family to save themselves, it would be you. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, written years ago, in Mom's handwriting. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means I failed to keep you safe again. Your father made contingency plans. People, accounts, files hidden where only someone willing to burn everything down would find them. Lauren doesn't know. She can't. She still believes in order, in appearances. You never did. If it comes to this, you'll have to choose. Protect the family name or expose the truth completely. Either way, you'll lose your sister. I'm so sorry. I looked up slowly. Lauren was watching my face. What does it say? She asked. I folded the letter back into the envelope. Nothing, I said, and that was the moment I realized something terrible. Whatever my father had hidden, Lauren would do anything to keep it buried, and I was the only one standing between her and the truth that could destroy us both. I didn't tell Lauren about the letter. Not that night. Not the next morning. I told myself I needed time to think, but the truth was uglier. I was afraid of what she'd do if she knew how much power my mother had quietly handed me. Mom never woke up again. She lingered for 2 days in that half-their-state doctors like to describe with soft words. When she finally passed, it was quiet. No dramatic last confession. No movie-style closure. Just a nurse turning off a monitor and saying, I'm sorry, like that could possibly cover the weight of what we'd lost and what she'd left behind. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and hollow condolences. People who hadn't called in years hugged us like we were suddenly precious again. I caught Lauren scanning faces constantly, calculating who knew what, who might talk. She was already in damage control mode. That should have warned me. A week later, the real war began. Lauren called a family meeting with Charles present. She sat at the head of the dining table like a CEO, folders neatly arranged, grief replaced by efficiency. We need to move forward, she said. There's a lot at stake. I noticed she avoided looking at me. Charles cleared his throat. The will stands as written. The trust will be activated once probate concludes. Lauren nodded. Yes, and I intend to challenge it. The words landed like a slap. On what grounds? I asked calmly. Undue influence, she said. Mom wasn't well. She was confused. Emotional. You came back at a very convenient time. Charles stiffened. Lauren. She was manipulated. Lauren continued. By guilt. By fear. By someone who left when things got hard and only returned when there was something to gain. She finally looked at me. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not shock. Confirmation. So that's how you're playing this, I said. I'm protecting the family, she snapped. From scandal. From secrets that should have died with her. Charles interjected carefully. If you pursue this, the safeguards your mother put in place will trigger. Lauren waved him off. I know what I'm doing. She didn't. That night, I opened the first drive. I shouldn't have. But once you start digging up a grave, stopping halfway doesn't make you innocent. What I found wasn't just financial records. It was people, names, dates, recorded conversations. My father hadn't just laundered money. He'd funded things that made my skin crawl. Bribes, blackmail, silence purchased in neat transactions. And he'd kept leverage on everyone involved, including Lauren. There were emails, transfers, one file labeled simply L. I listened to an audio recording dated 3 years ago. Lauren's voice, crying, panicked. I didn't know it was illegal, she said. He told me it was just restructuring. My father's voice followed, calm and cold. Ignorance won't save you. Loyalty might. I sat there shaking, understanding the real reason she never left. Never questioned him. Never told anyone. She wasn't loyal. She was trapped. And now she was trying to bury the evidence by burying me. 2 days later, I was served papers. Lauren wasn't bluffing. She'd filed a formal challenge, claiming I'd coerced Mom during her illness. The filing included statements from relatives, people I'd grown up with, people who'd eaten at our table. Reading their names hurt more than the accusations. I called Charles immediately. She's making a mistake, he said grimly. If this goes to court, everything comes out. That's what she wants to avoid, I said. Yes, he replied, which means she believes you won't fight back. I stared at the stack of drives on my desk. She was wrong. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. Lauren avoided me completely, moved into a hotel, communicated only through lawyers. Every move screamed fear disguised as confidence. On the morning of the hearing, I made my choice. I didn't bring the drives to court. I brought copies. When Lauren saw the box under my arm, her face drained of color. What is that? She whispered as we passed in the hallway. Insurance, I said quietly. She leaned closer, her voice shaking. If you do this, you'll destroy everything. I met her eyes. You already did. I'm just deciding who gets burned. Inside the courtroom, the judge listened patiently as Lauren's attorney painted me as a manipulative opportunist. They talked about my absence, my return, my sudden closeness to our dying mother. When it was my turn, my lawyer stood. We intend to submit evidence, he said. That explains why the trust was structured as it was. Lauren shot to her feet. Objection. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. Proceed. The first recording played. My father's voice filled the courtroom. Then Lauren's. Her breathing grew ragged as her own past came back to haunt her. Her lawyer turned slowly toward her. What is this? He asked under his breath. She didn't answer. By the time the second recording ended, the courtroom was silent. The judge removed his glasses. This hearing is adjourned, he said. I will need time to review this carefully. Outside, Lauren cornered me. You promised, she hissed. You promised you wouldn't do this. I promised nothing, I said. Mom warned me. You forced my hand. Tears streamed down her face. I was trying to survive. So was I replied. She laughed bitterly. Congratulations. You won. But here's the part no one expects. I withdrew the evidence the next day. Filed a sealed agreement. The trust stood. No criminal referrals. No public scandal. Lauren kept her share. So did I. People assumed that means we reconciled. We didn't. We haven't spoken since. She moved overseas, changed her name, started over. I stayed, and every once in a while, I'll wonder what would have happened if I'd gone all the way. If I'd exposed everything. If I'd burned the legacy to the ground like Mom said I might have to, but then I remember her letter. Either way, you'll lose your sister. She was right. The difference is, I chose how. Now I'll ask you something, because I genuinely want to know. If you were me, would you have destroyed her completely, or done exactly what I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this keep you hooked till the very end, make sure you like, subscribe, and stick around. Because some truths only surface when someone finally decides to tell them.